meet the finance minister of Qatar, a long, high-level strategic discussion. It was central to both our countries to make Canada and Qatar strategic partners, so we'll have a lot tomorrow also with the meeting with the Emir, but I could tell you now that since the PM arrived, the day has been fairly busy and is a good omen for Canada, for our bilateral relations and investments in the country.
Obviously, just arrived in Qatar, like all of you. Prime Minister just landed. Qatar is a strategic partner. We presented an investment budget, and I would say, what better place to start than in Qatar to talk with that? The Prime Minister obviously was in China with my colleagues. What we're looking to achieve here is really a strategic partnership, talking about bringing our relationship to a more strategic level, more sustained engagement. Like I said, I've met the first time the Prime Minister of Qatar 10 years ago when he was trade minister as well. We've been engaging for years. Prime Minister has a lot of friends, I would say, in the region, and certainly here in Qatar. So this afternoon, I had a long discussion with the finance minister of Qatar, very interested about Canada, stability, predictability, the rule of law. You know, the world is looking to places where they can deploy capital. And I can tell you over the last few days, over the last few weeks, a number of people have been calling to say Canada really stands out in the world. G7 country with AAA credit rating, very stable, talking about natural resources, liquefied natural gas, critical minerals, nuclear. As you know, we're on our way to Davos after, and I can tell you I've been going there for many years, and I think this year I've never seen that many people who want to engage with Canada. So Prime Minister was right. Canada wants to do more in the world, and being in China, being here in Qatar, moving then to Davos to bring our message to leaders, corporate leaders, but also, I would say, world leaders, is going to be important for Canada at a time where we say we're going to diversify our markets, double our exports from 300 billion to 600 billion over 10 years, and create prosperity at home. So we need partners, we need investors, and this is what this trip is all about.
We see that Mr. Carney is going around the world, making relations with all kinds of countries. But for concrete results, but what about capacity in Canada? The resources to have concrete results at the end with all these investments.
Vous avez raison, il faut faire plus, puis il faut faire plus rapidement. Vous savez, on a eu une réunion du G7 des ministres des Finances à Washington lundi dernier, pendant dimanche et lundi. Et je peux vous dire que le sentiment autour de la table des pays
and I can say that the feeling around the table at the G7 in this new world economic reality to develop partnerships so that projects can move forward. I like the question because we were talking about initiatives and specific projects. We are in the not what, or we are in the how, and that is with a lot of colleagues at the G7. We even have lists of projects that we're looking at to say we want to develop these projects because, for example, in critical minerals, it's going to be essential for national security and economic security. And the feelings of the G7, our partners, and here in Qatar, this nexus between food security, energy security, and economic security and national security. So when talking with our partners here in Qatar, they have a greater interest in developing strong relations with Canada on various aspects. We're talking of investment. Today, we talked of biotech and critical minerals, which are very important in the 21st century. And certainly as they have the 2030 vision, we have a plan to draw investment, generational investment from Qatar. And we hear it too in business around the world, people who are saying, now we know why. We're all aware that there's a turn in the wind and a lot of uncertainty, so we have to develop common projects. And the big projects in Canada gives faith. I think it's the faith of investors. And the tour that the PM is doing will really help us on that.
It's good asking, and we're in Qatar, we're asking about, but they have a big base around here, so that's okay.
We have a big base. There's some concern in the Canadian business community that all the extra trade deals, the China deals, nice to haves. CUSMA is a must-have, that we might be getting in our own way with all this diversification. Americans might be saying, well, if you don't need us, then they may not see a priority for CUSMA. Can you address some concerns again of the business community that that CUSMA's got to be the priority?
Listen, one thing that we said is that we need to reduce our dependence and increase our reliance. If you're talking about China, China is the second largest economy in the world and our second largest trading partner. So I would say for the Prime Minister to find a strategic path forward in engaging with China is necessary for Canada. Just like our European allies have found a strategic way of engaging with China on manufacturing and in many sectors. So I would say, whilst you understand the role that China is playing in the world economy, but also as a partner in terms of trade, you understand how this is important. Now, obviously, we've been blessed by geography. You know, I always remind folks in Washington, we are their largest customer. We buy more from the United States than China, Japan, and the UK combined. But it is clear that in the world where, you know, the trading relationship is different, where countries are looking to diversify, I think it is in Canada's best interest to really diversify, engage with partners in the Middle East, in Asia, and we'll continue. You'll see us throughout the year defining this partnership, engaging more, and there's an appetite for Canada in the world. I can assure you, I've never seen that many people wanting to engage. Look at the Emir tomorrow will be. We hosted him a few months ago in Canada. The investment funds have been reaching out. I think they understand that a lot of people value more and more the stability, predictability that Canada offers. We are a big magnet for talent. We are one of the G7 countries with very large industry. We build planes, we build cars, we build ships, we build medicine. We have critical minerals that, as you know, is going to be a defining element in the 21st century. We have abundance of energy, and we're the only G7 with a free trade with all the G7 nations. So, like I always say to Canadians, I'm confident about the future. There's headwind. We have the fiscal capacity. We made strategic investments. And I would say in a world which is changing like that, you better diversify. And that's what Canada is doing. At the same time, we've been blessed by geography. We'll engage with our southern partner. But at the same time, supply chain in the world are changing. And we need to adapt to this new reality because the Canadian economy needs to develop these partnerships. And I think businesses see more and more the benefit of that.
Do you think you can get a FIPA across? Do you think you can get a FIPA across the finish line? It's been talked about a lot here. And then on another topic, Mr. Carney just accepted an invitation to be part of Trump's border peace for Gaza. What do you think Canada can learn from the Qataris about helping broker peace?
Well, let me start with your second question. You're right. The Qataris have been playing a key role in diplomacy in that particular region. And when I say Canada should do more or can do more around the world, will do more, the fact that President Trump asked Prime Minister Carney to sit on the peace board, I think as it's referred to, is a testament to the role that Canada plays around the world, but also the Prime Minister in terms of the world leaders. To your question with respect to our engagement in the region, and the news that we've seen, I think it's good for Canada to play a role on the international level, and certainly the voice of Prime Minister Carney is going to matter, and I think is welcome by you've seen with world leaders. Your first question was around
There's been talk
the FIPA. I think.
And if do you think you can get across the finish line? And also,
Sure.
What would that mean? Like what?
So for folks at home, the FIPA is a Foreign Investment Protection Agreement. So let's make things that people can understand. It is the agreement that is reached between countries to ensure investment. So what we're trying to do, and there's a very relevant question and a very important question, we're trying to put the basis to remove barriers for investments. If you want more cross-border investments, you need to have the framework so that investors would have the confidence that their investment would be secured, would be protected, and that goes both sides. So this is very much to the benefit of Canada because we have a number of people who are looking to invest here, but it's also very much in favor of allowing investments to come to Canada. So I'm very hopeful. You know, Canada has a number of these foreign investment protection agreements around the world. I used to be trade minister. We used to sign many of them. And I think it's a good thing because what you do, you remove barrier, you increase predictability, and security of investment, and that's needed in the world.
Juste en français, juste une traduction sur la première
In French,
question de ma collègue Ashley sur le
a translation of what my colleague asked.
Vous pouvez apprendre les Qataris dans leur rôle géopolitique.
Ben, le Qatar
What about our role
a
in
toujours joué un rôle
geopolitics?
important dans la diplomatie dans la région, toujours parlé aux différents acteurs.
Diplomacy always involves various players. I say that Canada wants to do more in the world. We join when this Council of Peace for Gaza that Carney was invited. I think that demonstrates how important the voice of Canada is, the role the Prime Minister can play in peace in the world, engagement of Canada in the region. That's no accident. We're here today. As I said, we presented an investment budget. We're serious investors who see Canada and see important investments in biotech, the North critical minerals. We also talked about infrastructure, and tomorrow I'll go to the biggest refinery in Qatar. We have a lot to learn from each other, but it's certainly an important moment to elevate our relation to a more strategic one. Do you think that Donald Trump really wants to pull out of Kuzma? I think that the free trade agreement between Canada, U.S., and Mexico has well-served workers on all sides of the border. Our message to Washington has been that we're always ready to sit at the table and engage and accomplish. You know, we've often said that Canada is the best partner of the U.S. as first trade partner. The supply chains that exist allowed us to have a more competitive economic bloc internationally. We're ready. We've been developing these supply chains for decades, and we'll have to see the president's position. But I would say if you look at the economic growth that we've had since we've had various trade agreements, which started with the Auto Pact, and then free trade agreements at the start, U.S.-Canada, and then U.S.-Canada-Mexico. I think if you look at the numbers, the answer is clear. It's been beneficial to all. Obviously, we're going into an economic period. Nobody has a crystal ball. Our role is we're always talking of partners, but we'll be at the table for an economy that's so close like the U.S. We'll always be at the table, but do we look to see, will we have more diversification? I think people understand in investment we want to diversify independently of the market.
That the government advised their American counterparts about the deal with China. Have you had any discussion? Have you had any questions from your counterparts in Washington about the deal with China? And what was the nature of the kind of conversations that you had?
That's a very good question. Well, my visit, as you might recall, was before the trip of Prime Minister Carney to China. I mean, it was announced, but it was before. The discussion, and by the way, I have a very good relationship with Secretary Besant, and that's helpful to Canada. That's helpful to Canada. We want to have good relationship with our counterparts in Washington. The Prime Minister has a good relationship with the President. I have a good relationship with Secretary Besant. I think we met 11 times last year. So we have, and we need dialogue. We need to be able to speak frankly about issues. We need to look at where we can work together. Critical minerals was obvious when we were at the G7. And I also noted the words of the President with respect to the visit of the Prime Minister in China and said, you know what, if Canada can find a way and have a, as he called, I think, a deal with China, well, you know, good. So I think people understand that if you want to diversify, you cannot ignore the second largest trading partner you have, nor the second largest economy in the world. And like I said, if you look at the blueprint, because you were referring to the G7, I was with my G7 colleague in Washington. If you look at some of our colleagues, Germany, France, and others, they all find a way, the United Kingdom, they all find a way to engage with eyes wide open, strategically, and find a path of engagement which preserve their interests, but also allows them to engage with China.
So no questions, no queries, no conversations?
At that particular moment, because like I said, the trip was announced, but I've been on the road like pretty much like you. So, but we'll see. Secretary Besson, I think we're seeing each other again within a matter of weeks. We're going to be together again, and I'm sure that we'll have a chance to engage again, like we always do.
What are you being eyes wide open about here in this country that obviously is facing human rights allegations or migrant allegations?
Well, I would say Canada is always true to its values, and that remains true with whomever you engage around the world. And at the same time, you can develop commercial trading relationship, investment relationship. I would say Canada is no different than our other G7 partner, which have, engaged with the world as we should. I think in that sense, Canada is catching up. To engage, you have to engage with leaders in the region like Qatar, for example, in the Middle East. You have to engage with China when you're talking in Asia. You have to engage with, a number of countries in the world. I think the moment you have dialogue, that's where you can progress issues. And I think the fact that we're here sends a big signal is that we remain true, obviously, to our Canadian values. That's always reflected in what we do. But at the same time, you have a beneficial relationship that will serve Canadians, attract investment, and support our economy.
Merci
to I think. No.
Yeah, we gotta go.
She's the boss, as you know.
Busy schedule.
We'll see each other. We'll be together for the week. Merci tout le monde.